Hello, everyone, friends. As we step into 2025, I want to talk about transformation, not the shiny, picture-perfect version we often see on social media, but the real kind. The kind where you feel stretched, scared, and maybe even a little undone before you realize you're stronger, braver, and more alive than you've ever been. Transformation isn't a straight path, it's a messy dance. But if you lean into it, it can lead you to a life that feels deeply yours. Transformation begins not with action, but with awareness. And the foundation of awareness is radical honesty. It's not about surface-level introspection or casual self-reflection. It's about getting deeply, uncomfortably real with yourself. This isn't the kind of honesty where you sugarcoat the truth to make it more palatable. It's the kind where you sit with your unvarnished reality and say, this is where I am, and this is what's true for me. Radical honesty is powerful, but it's also incredibly difficult. It requires you to confront things you've been avoiding, parts of your life, your relationships, or even your personality that you'd rather not face. Maybe you've been clinging to a job that drains your energy because it feels safer than risking failure in a new career. Maybe you've been holding on to a relationship that's long past its expiration date because the idea of being alone is too scary. Or maybe deep down, you know you're capable of more, but you've been hiding behind excuses, afraid to see what might happen if you actually gave it your all. The first step to transformation is shining a light on these truths, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. Why? Because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. Pretending everything is fine when it isn't only keeps you stuck. You'll spend your days rearranging the furniture in a burning house, trying to ignore the flames instead of addressing the source of the fire. Radical honesty isn't just about identifying the external things that need to change, it's also about looking inward. It means asking yourself some hard questions. What patterns in my life aren't serving me anymore? Where am I settling instead of striving? What am I afraid to admit, even to myself? And then the big one, why? Why am I holding on to these habits, beliefs, or situations? What am I afraid will happen if I let them go? The answers aren't always easy to hear. Sometimes you'll realize you've been clinging to a version of yourself that no longer fits because it's familiar. Or you might discover that the story you've been telling yourself about your limitations isn't based on fact, but fear. Other times, radical honesty might reveal that the life you've built, the one that looks so good on paper, isn't actually the life you want. It's tempting to stop here, to recognize these truths, and then bury them under a mountain of distractions. But transformation demands more. It asks you to sit with these truths, even when they make you uncomfortable. It asks you to acknowledge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And it asks you to take responsibility for closing that gap. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They confuse honesty with self-judgment, turning what should be an empowering process into an opportunity to beat themselves up. But radical honesty isn't about shaming yourself for what you haven't done or where you've fallen short. It's about understanding where you are so you can move forward with clarity and purpose. Think about it this way. Imagine you're lost in the woods. If you don't know where you are, you'll wander in circles, wasting time and energy trying to find your way out. But if you're honest about your location, no matter how far off course you are, you can pull out a map, identify your position, and plot a path forward. Radical honesty works the same way. It's your compass, your starting point. Without it, you're just guessing. This process isn't something you do once and call it a day. Radical honesty is an ongoing practice. As you grow and change, you'll need to check in with yourself regularly, asking, what's true for me now? The truths you uncover today might look different 6 months or a year from now, and that's a good thing. It means you're evolving. But here's the thing, honesty without action is meaningless. It's not enough to acknowledge your truths, you have to act on them. If you realize you're stuck in a toxic relationship, radical honesty means doing the hard work of setting boundaries or walking away. If you uncover a dream you've been ignoring, it means taking the first step toward making it a reality, even if you don't know exactly how it'll turn out. Of course, acting on radical honesty requires courage, sometimes more courage than you think you have. The truth can feel heavy, especially when it reveals changes you need to make that feel overwhelming or impossible. But remember, transformation isn't about overhauling your entire life overnight. It's about taking one small, honest step at a time. The beauty of radical honesty is that it doesn't just set the stage for transformation, it also builds trust. When you're honest with yourself, you stop living in denial or avoidance. You start showing up as the most authentic version of yourself, not just for you, but for the people around you. This authenticity creates deeper, more meaningful connections because it allows others to see the real you, not the version you think they want to see. Radical honesty also helps you let go of comparison. When you're clear about your own path, you stop worrying about what everyone else is doing. You stop measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel because you know your transformation is unique to you. Finally, radical honesty reminds you that you're in control. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking your circumstances dictate your life, but the truth is you have more power than you realize. When you're honest about where you are and what you want, you reclaim that power. You stop waiting for permission, for the perfect moment, or for someone else to change your life for you. You realize that transformation starts and ends with you. Owning your stories is one of the most transformative acts of self-awareness and self-empowerment you can undertake. It means taking a hard, honest look at the narratives you carry, the ones you tell yourself, the ones others have written for you, and the ones you unconsciously live by and choosing to reclaim them. To own your stories is to recognize that while you may not have control over everything that happens to you, you do have control over how you interpret and respond to those events. Each of us has stories that shape how we see ourselves in the world. Some of these stories are empowering. I'm resilient, I'm a good friend, I'm capable of learning new things. Others, however, can limit us. I'm not good enough, I'll never succeed at this, people always leave me. These limiting stories can feel like facts, but more often than not, they're interpretations ones we've adopted, sometimes without even realizing it. Where do these stories come from? Some are born from pivotal moments in our lives, childhood experiences, successes, failures, or relationships. For instance, if you grew up hearing that you were the shy one or the troublemaker, you might still carry that label into adulthood, even if it no longer fits who you are. Other stories come from cultural expectations or societal norms telling you what you should be, do, or achieve. The problem is that many of these stories operate in the background, influencing our decisions, actions, and self-worth without us even being aware of them. They can keep us playing small, afraid to take risks, or reluctant to embrace opportunities. Owning your stories means bringing them into the light and examining them with curiosity and courage. Start by identifying the stories you tell yourself. Ask yourself, what beliefs about myself do I hold as absolute truths? What patterns keep showing up in my life and what stories might be driving them? Are there moments in my past that I replay over and over, and what meaning have I attached to them? For example, let's say you didn't get a promotion at work, and the story you've been telling yourself is, I'm not leadership material. That belief may cause you to shy away from future opportunities, reinforcing the narrative that you're not capable. But is that story true, or is it just one interpretation of a single event? Maybe the real reason you didn't get the promotion was timing, or the decision had nothing to do with your abilities. Owning your story doesn't mean pretending the disappointment didn't happen. It means taking responsibility for how you frame it and choosing a perspective that empowers you instead of limiting you. Owning your stories also means letting go of the ones that don't belong to you. Sometimes we carry stories that were handed to us by others, parents, teachers, partners, or even society. These might include ideas about what success looks like, how you should behave, or what you're capable of achieving. If you spent years trying to live up to someone else's expectations, it's time to ask yourself whose story you're living. Is it truly yours? And if it's not, what would it look like to write a story that reflects your values, dreams, and potential? This process isn't about blaming others for the stories you've inherited. It's about recognizing that you have the power to rewrite them. Blame keeps you stuck, ownership sets you free. Owning your stories also requires you to face the ones that bring you shame. We all have moments we'd rather forget, mistakes we've made, things we've said or done, or times when we fell short of our own expectations. These stories can feel like heavy baggage, weighing us down and keeping us from moving forward. But here's the thing, shame thrives in secrecy. When you avoid or deny these stories, they hold power over you. When you face them, name them, and integrate them into your narrative, they lose their grip. Owning your stories doesn't mean you have to shout them from the rooftops. It's not about airing every detail of your life to the world. It's about owning them for yourself, acknowledging what happened, how it shaped you, and what you've learned from it. For example, if you failed at something in the past, you might carry the story, "I'm a failure, but failure doesn't define you unless you let it." Instead, you can rewrite the story, "I took a risk, and it didn't work out, but I learned something valuable, and I'm stronger for it." Notice how this shift transforms failure from a fixed identity into a stepping stone for growth. Another important aspect of owning your stories is recognizing the difference between being the author of your life and being the victim of it. It's easy to fall into a victim mindset, especially when life feels unfair or out of control. But while you may not be responsible for everything that happens to you, you are responsible for how you respond. Owning your stories means stepping into the role of author, reclaiming your agency, and deciding how the next chapter unfolds. This doesn't mean ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It means acknowledging the full complexity of your story, the highs and the lows, the joy and the pain, and finding meaning in it. It means recognizing that even the hardest parts of your story have something to teach you. And here's the beautiful thing: when you own your stories, you give others permission to own theirs. Vulnerability is contagious. When you have the courage to show up as your authentic self, flaws, scars, and all you create is space for others to do the same. It's a ripple effect that deepens relationships and fosters genuine connection. Owning your stories is an act of liberation. It's a declaration that your past does not define your future, that your mistakes do not diminish your worth, and that you are so much more than any single moment in your life. When you own your stories, you reclaim the pen and remind yourself that not fear, shame, or external expectations are the author of your life. Too often, we live as though we need someone else's approval to begin living the life we truly want. We wait for permission to take risks, pursue our dreams, or even speak up for what we need. But the truth is, no one is coming to hand you a permission slip. The permission you're waiting for is yours to give, and the longer you wait, the more opportunities you'll miss. We grow up learning to ask for permission. It starts in childhood when we seek approval from parents, teachers, and authority figures for everything we do. It's a natural part of growing up, but for many of us, this habit lingers far into adulthood. Somewhere along the way, we internalize the belief that our choices and desires need to be validated by others, that we have to meet a certain standard or follow a specific path before we're allowed to chase what we really want. This mindset can manifest in countless ways. Maybe you've been holding off on starting a new career because you're waiting to feel qualified enough, or for someone to tell you it's okay. Or perhaps you've been hesitant to end a relationship that's no longer serving you because you're waiting for the right time or for someone else to agree with your decision. You might even be holding back from something as simple as sharing your opinions or ideas, fearing they won't be well received. What's really at the root of this waiting? Fear. Fear of failure, rejection, judgment, or even success. We tell ourselves that waiting will somehow protect us, that if we just hold off long enough, the perfect moment will arrive and the risk will vanish. But here's the hard truth: the perfect moment doesn't exist. And every moment you spend waiting is a moment you could be using to move closer to the life you want. Waiting for permission often disguises itself as practicality. We say things like, "I'll start that business when I have more experience," or "I'll go back to school when the timing is better," while there's value in preparation and planning. These justifications can easily become excuses. They allow us to stay in our comfort zones where the risks feel smaller and the stakes feel lower. But comfort zones, as safe as they may seem, are not where transformation happens. Consider how much of your life has already been shaped by waiting. Think about the dreams you've put on hold, the conversations you've avoided, or the risks you've talked yourself out of. How many of those moments were driven by the belief that you needed permission, whether from a person, a circumstance, or even yourself? One of the most liberating realizations you can have is that permission is not something you wait for, it's something you claim. No one else knows your desires, your potential, or your capacity better than you do. When you wait for someone else to validate your choices, you give away your power. But when you decide to act without waiting for approval, you take that power back. This doesn't mean acting recklessly or ignoring responsibilities. It means trusting yourself enough to move forward even when the path isn't fully clear. It means recognizing that your dreams, your goals, and your voice are valid simply because they are yours, not because someone else deems them worthy. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who seem to live boldly, pursue their passions, and make a difference in the world. Chances are they didn't wait for someone to give them permission. They acted often in the face of uncertainty and doubt. They trusted that they were enough, even when they didn't have all the answers. You don't need a title to lead. You don't need an audience to create. And you don't need perfection to begin. Waiting for permission often means waiting for a version of yourself that doesn't exist, a version that is flawless, fearless, and fully prepared. But the truth is, transformation doesn't require perfection. It requires courage. Stopping the cycle of waiting starts with a simple but profound question: what would I do if I wasn't waiting for permission? Allow yourself to answer honestly. Maybe you'd start that book you've been dreaming about. Maybe you'd have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding, or maybe you'd finally prioritize your own needs instead of always putting others first. Once you've identified what you do, the next step is to take action, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect. Action is what breaks the cycle of waiting. It's what builds momentum and confidence. Every step you take reinforces the idea that you don't need permission, because you're already capable and worthy. Stopping the cycle of waiting also means letting go of the fear of disappointing others. Sometimes the permission we're waiting for is tied to the expectations of the people around us. We hold back because we don't want to rock the boat, challenge the status quo, or risk being misunderstood. But living your life to please others will only lead to resentment and regret. This doesn't mean disregarding the people you care about. It means recognizing that their approval is not a prerequisite for your growth. True connection comes from authenticity, not conformity. When you stop waiting for permission and start living in alignment with your values, you create space for deeper, more meaningful relationships. It's also important to acknowledge that waiting for permission isn't always a conscious choice. Sometimes it's a habit we've fallen into without realizing it. The good news is that habits can be changed. Start by noticing the moments when you feel hesitant or uncertain. Ask yourself, am I waiting for someone to tell me it's okay? And if so, why? Finally, remember that giving yourself permission doesn't mean you'll never feel scared or uncertain. It means acting in spite of those feelings. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward anyway. Each time you choose to give yourself permission, you strengthen your ability to trust yourself in your decisions. And over time, that trust becomes a powerful force for transformation. One of the most crucial and challenging truths about growth and transformation is that it often involves stepping into discomfort. Whether you're trying something new, facing your fears, or making a change, you'll likely encounter discomfort along the way. We're conditioned to avoid discomfort. Our brains are wired to seek safety and predictability, and discomfort often feels like a signal that something is wrong. But the reality is, discomfort is not just inevitable in the process of change, it's necessary. When we strive for transformation, whether it's in our careers, relationships, health, or personal growth, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking we should have everything figured out or that it should feel effortless. But the truth is that every significant change requires us to confront discomfort, to step into the unknown, and to challenge the boundaries of what feels safe and familiar. The question then becomes, how can we learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable? Discomfort is often seen as a negative emotion, a sign of something going wrong. But discomfort itself is neutral. It's how we respond to it that makes it positive or negative. Discomfort shows up in many forms: anxiety, fear, doubt, uncertainty, or even physical sensations like tension or fatigue. It's uncomfortable because it challenges us to grow, to stretch, to push ourselves past the limits we've set. The problem arises when we resist discomfort, trying to avoid it at all costs. This resistance often keeps us stuck. If we continue to resist discomfort, we remain in our comfort zones and growth remains elusive. A comfort zone, while providing security, also limits the range of experiences we have. It becomes a box we live inside of, and it can be easy to forget that we are meant for more than that. The paradox is that it's only by stepping outside of that box, by facing discomfort, that we can experience true growth. The next time you feel uncomfortable, instead of retreating from it, try reframing the experience. Discomfort is a sign that you're moving in the right direction. It's the mark of progress. You cannot grow without encountering the unfamiliar, the challenging, and the unknown. Whether it's a new job, a new relationship, or a new habit you're trying to form, discomfort is part of the equation. Take, for example, someone who decides to run their first marathon. Initially, the idea of running 26.2 miles feels almost impossible. Every step feels like discomfort physically, mentally, and emotionally. But with each mile, the runner is getting stronger. Each moment of discomfort pushes them further than they thought they could go. And once they cross the finish line, the discomfort is no longer something to avoid, but something they've conquered. It's a proof of their growth, a marker of their ability to persevere. In the same way, discomfort is not just something to endure, it's something to embrace. Every time you step into discomfort, you're saying yes to the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to evolve. It's an opportunity to expand your capabilities, challenge your assumptions, and reimagine what you're capable of. Discomfort often accompanies fear. Fear is one of the most common reasons we shy away from new experiences or avoid the risks that come with change. But what if we began to view fear and discomfort differently? Instead of seeing them as signals to stop or retreat, we could reframe them as signals to lean in and move forward. When we're afraid, our body and mind send us signals to protect us from perceived harm. But often, these signals aren't about physical danger, they're about the unknown. It's the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, or the fear of not being good enough. These fears are not facts, they are feelings, and feelings, while real, are not always accurate. By changing our relationship to fear and discomfort, we can begin to see them as opportunities to test our boundaries and strengthen our resilience. When fear arises, instead of turning away, we can ask ourselves what would happen if I moved toward this fear instead of away from it. What's on the other side of this discomfort? And how much stronger will I be if I face it head on? One of the most effective ways to become comfortable with discomfort is to start small. If you try to jump straight into something that feels overwhelmingly uncomfortable, it can lead to burnout or discouragement. But by starting with small risks, you can gradually build your tolerance for discomfort. For example, if you're afraid of public speaking, start by speaking in front of a small group of friends or colleagues. Then gradually increase the size of your audience. Each time you push past your comfort zone, you'll become more comfortable with the discomfort. Over time, what once seemed intimidating will begin to feel more manageable. Small risks also help to shift our mindset about discomfort. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid at all costs, we begin to see it as an inevitable and necessary part of growth. We learn to trust that discomfort doesn't last forever, and it's not something that needs to be feared, it's something to be navigated, understood, and even welcomed. It's important to remember that discomfort doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It's a natural part of the human experience, and while discomfort can feel intense at times, it's essential to approach it with self-compassion. When you feel uncomfortable, it's easy to become critical of yourself, to think you're not doing enough or that you're failing. But this only makes discomfort harder to endure. Instead, approach discomfort with the same kindness and patience you would offer a friend who is struggling. Recognize that discomfort is a part of being human and that it's okay to feel vulnerable, uncertain, or anxious. These feelings don't make you weak, they make you human. And they are signs that you're moving beyond your limits. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is a key ingredient in building resilience. Resilience isn't about never feeling discomfort, it's about learning how to bounce back when you face challenges, to keep moving forward even when the path feels hard. Each time you embrace discomfort, you strengthen your ability to handle future challenges. You learn that you can endure more than you thought, and that discomfort is temporary. Resilience builds over time, and it's cultivated in the moments where we feel stretched beyond what we thought was possible. In the end, becoming comfortable with discomfort isn't about eliminating fear or avoiding challenges. It's about learning to engage with them, to find the lessons in them, and to keep going even when things feel hard. Discomfort is a powerful teacher, and when we learn to sit with it, instead of avoiding it, we unlock our true potential. In our fast-paced, ever-evolving world, one of the most valuable things we can do is stay connected not just to others, but to ourselves. In the midst of our busy lives, it's easy to become disconnected, distracted by the noise of modern life. the demands of work, and the constant pull of technology. We often find ourselves rushing from one task to the next, focusing on everything outside of us and forgetting to nurture the relationships and connections that truly matter. But staying connected is not a luxury, it's a necessity for our well-being, our happiness, and our ability to thrive. Human beings are inherently social creatures. Connection is woven into the very fabric of who we are. From the moment we are born, we rely on others for care, support, and love. As we grow, we seek connection with friends, family, and communities. We crave understanding, empathy, and the sense of belonging that comes with meaningful relationships. Research shows that strong, healthy connections, whether with loved ones, friends, or colleagues, are crucial to our mental and emotional health. They boost our sense of happiness, reduce stress, and even improve our physical health. Connection gives us purpose. It reminds us that we are not alone in the world, that our lives have meaning because we share them with others. But in the hustle and bustle of life, it's easy to forget the importance of connection. We may find ourselves spending more time on social media than with the people who matter most. We may neglect our own emotional needs in the pursuit of achievement and success. We may become so busy that we fail to check in with ourselves or the people who care about us. Staying connected is a conscious choice, a practice that requires time, energy, and intentionality. One of the most immediate and visible forms of connection is with others. Meaningful relationships are essential to our happiness. These relationships are built on trust, empathy, and communication. However, in today's digital world, we can easily mistake surface-level interactions for real connection. Text messages, social media updates, and likes on photos can give us the illusion of closeness, but they don't provide the depth and richness that come from face-to-face conversations, shared experiences, or the vulnerability of being truly seen and heard by another person. Staying connected with others requires intentional effort. It's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of daily life and forget to make time for the people we care about. But meaningful relationships don't thrive on autopilot. They need our attention and care. It's important to make time for regular check-ins, to actively listen when someone shares something with you, and to be present during moments of connection. True connection involves vulnerability. It's about sharing not just the happy moments, but also the challenges, fears, and uncertainties that come with being human. In the workplace, staying connected with colleagues fosters collaboration, innovation, and a positive environment. When we build authentic relationships with those we work with, we create a culture of trust and support. The most successful teams are often those that feel connected, where each person feels valued and heard. In personal relationships, whether with family, friends, or romantic partners, staying connected means showing up, being present, and supporting one another through life's ups and downs. While connection with others is essential, it's equally important to stay connected to yourself. In our busy lives, we often put ourselves last, prioritizing the needs of others, work, and obligations. We become so focused on external demands that we forget to nurture our inner world. But staying connected to yourself is the foundation for everything else in your life. If you aren't in touch with your own needs, desires, and emotions, it's difficult to be fully present with others. Self-connection starts with self-awareness. It involves taking the time to check in with yourself regularly to understand how you're feeling, what you need, and what you're experiencing. This doesn't have to be a complicated or time-consuming process. It can be as simple as taking a few moments each day to pause, breathe, and reflect. What emotions are you carrying? What's weighing on your mind? What do you need in this moment to feel more centered and at peace? Staying connected to yourself also means practicing self-compassion. We can often be our own harshest critics, focusing on our shortcomings and ignoring our strengths. But self-connection is about accepting yourself fully, embracing your imperfections, and showing kindness to yourself even in moments of struggle. Self-compassion creates the space for growth and healing, and it allows you to show up as your best self in the world. In today's world, technology plays a significant role in how we connect. Social media, messaging apps, video calls, and online communities make it easier than ever to stay in touch with others, regardless of distance. But technology can also create a sense of disconnection if it becomes our primary form of interaction. The more time we spend on screens, the less time we spend in meaningful face-to-face conversations. While technology can be a tool for connection, it's important to use it consciously. It's easy to mindlessly scroll through social media, comparing ourselves to others, or getting caught in the cycle of endless updates. But this type of connection often leaves us feeling empty and disconnected from what truly matters. To stay connected in a meaningful way, we need to make space for real, authentic interactions, whether it's calling a friend, spending quality time with family, or engaging in conversations that go beyond the surface level. One of the most powerful tools technology offers is the ability to stay connected with people who are far away. We can maintain friendships, strengthen relationships, and find support from communities across the world. But the key is to use technology in a way that fosters connection, not replaces it. Video chats, voice messages, and even texting with intention can bridge the distance and help us feel connected to others, even when we can't be physically present. In an ideal world, staying connected would be simple and effortless. But in reality, it can be challenging. We all face moments when we feel disconnected, whether due to physical distance, emotional walls, or the demands of life. During these times, it's easy to feel isolated, even when we are surrounded by people. The key is to recognize when disconnection occurs and take proactive steps to reconnect. Staying connected requires vulnerability. It means allowing yourself to be seen, heard, and understood, even when it feels uncomfortable. It means reaching out to others, even when you're unsure of how they will respond. And it means showing up for yourself, taking the time to care for your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And connection is a practice, a choice we make every day. It's not something that happens by accident. It requires time, energy, and intention. Whether it's through deepening relationships with others, cultivating self-awareness, or navigating the complexities of modern technology, staying connected is one of the most important ways we can live a fulfilling, meaningful life. It's through connection both with others and with ourselves that we truly thrive. In conclusion, staying connected both to ourselves and to others is essential for living a life full of purpose, resilience, and fulfillment. As we navigate the complexities of modern life, it's easy to lose sight of the importance of connection, but it's these connections that ground us and give us strength. Whether it's nurturing relationships with those around us, building authentic bonds, or staying in tune with our own needs and emotions, connection is at the heart of every meaningful experience. When we actively choose to embrace discomfort, take risks, and face fears, we open ourselves to the growth and transformation that comes with connection. It's through vulnerability and presence that we create the most powerful relationships, and it's through self-awareness and self-compassion that we can show up as the best version of ourselves. In a world that often pulls us in a million directions, staying connected is a reminder that we are not meant to navigate life alone. By making a conscious effort to stay connected to both ourselves and others, we unlock the power to live authentically with courage and purpose.